and welcome to the Innovia Conversation. I'm Steve Waltz.
And I'm still Jeff Brogulski.
Glad to hear you're still Jeff. And Jeff, today it's the first time. It took us a while to do it, but we actually have some, customers and users on the podcast. We thought that might be a good idea. So, but this podcast is about the Innovia Customer Conference, which this year was what, Jeff?
It was virtual.
It was virtual, and it was the first time for us with all the COVID going on. So we're excited to have Matt Whitaker. Whitaker, did I pronounce it, Matt, correctly? Your last name?
Whitaker.
Whitaker, that's what I thought. And Bryan Christian, guys, welcome.
Thank you. Happy
to have us.
Yeah. So let's see. Let's go Matt first. Matt, what company do you work for?
My company is called Link-Belt Excavators. We are, believe it or not, the manufacturers of Link-Belt brand excavators. So we're based in Lexington, Kentucky, and I am the business analyst / ERP administrator.
Awesome. And how long have you been at? Can I say LBX?
LBX, yep. I've been at LBX for a little over 2 years now.
Awesome. All right. Now let's move on to Bryan. Bryan, who are you with and what do you do there and how long have you been there?
I'm with a company called VPT. We make power converters that are used in aerospace and military applications. One of the easiest things to point to, we did the power conversion systems on GPS satellites. So everybody's kind of interacted with our product secondhand more than once. I'm the IT systems manager. Basically, I've been the head of VPT's IT department now for a little over 15 years. It was 15 years this month, so long time.
Awesome. Yeah, and I like that we've got in these two guys, we've got a great representation of our customer base. We've got like the business side represented and the tech side represented. So awesome. All right, Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know you have some thought-provoking questions for our guests.
I was always wondering on the LBX what the X stands for, Matt. Does it stand?
Yeah, well, it stands for excavators, which is kind of, you have to get a little bit creative when you think about it that way.
Well, it's very cool. 'Cause when I explained to my wife, she still hasn't figured out. Well, she kind of has. She listens to the podcast, so I got to be careful. Like what do you actually do? And we were driving down the road one time. We saw one of your the cranes working on the construction. I go, that's one of our customers. She didn't really tell her what we still did, but I said we help them with their software. Go, okay.
Matt, do you want me to correct Steve on that, or do you want to?
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead, Jeff. We are actually a sister company to Link-Belt Cranes, so they're maybe 8 miles up the road. And honestly, I've met maybe 3 people who work there, so not exactly correct, but close enough.
And even worse, I don't think they don't run Business Central, if you can believe that, Steve.
That is also correct. Yes.
So, all right, I lied to my wife. Well, but at least I didn't know it at the time, right? So, but guys, so we've been to all sorts of different meetings with you guys, user group events, and I'm sure you've been to other events. And so I'm kind of curious to give your take. You were on our virtual conference and you've been to the live conferences. I'd love to hear your take on what your expectations were going into the conference, and then what you actually thought about the conferences. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Well, I think for me, I always go in hoping I'll find something during the sessions that I can make use of, which, the content was good. So, of course, that did happen. I will say with the virtual conference, you just don't get quite the same level of interaction with the other attendees. And that is definitely a difference. Something I expected, but it's amazing how much of a difference that felt to me. On a different note, because I actually also presented the session. Presenting was very different and very interesting. So
it is a little different, Brian, when you're used to being in front of people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole different level of anxiety when you're just staring at your screen and talking. What you feel like is just talking to yourself, since everybody else is on mute. That you don't get otherwise, and it's almost more nerve-wracking.
I agree. I didn't present. They decided, we don't need the sales guy to present. We'll actually have people that know what they're talking about present on subjects. So I know Jeff presented, and yeah, I agree. I know when I first came over and did it, I used to do a lot of presentations in groups. The first time I did a webinar, it really kind of took me for a loop because, like you said, you're staring at a screen. And I remember I can't. It's kind of hard for me to sit still. I don't know about you, but I tend to like to move around and just to be able to sit down in a chair. It just kind of changed the whole dynamic. But now that I've done it for a while, it just I think it's a new normal now, right? So Matt, what was your take on it?
Well, I agree with what Brian said, that I'm going in to try to take something back with me. Even if it's just one or two things that I can put into play at our business. The thing that I noticed most about the virtual versus the in-person conference is the sort of almost lack of viewer participation. In person, especially after the presentation is finished, you'll get 3 to 5 to maybe 6, 7 questions. In the sessions that I attended virtually, you may see one question, and that was kind of up in the air. It was usually 0, to be honest. So that's a big difference.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
I'll say this: during my session, as I got towards the end, one of the things I kind of started doing was pushing for questions, which is something I wouldn't typically do whenever I'm presenting, but not in the conference. Of course, usually I don't have to, but I started pushing and actually did get some really good questions, and was able to actually give some really good information that I probably wouldn't have included otherwise.
Well, I think we have to realize that this is new, not only to the presenters, but to the people viewing. So, maybe 6 months down the road, if we're at some other conference, we'll be comfortable asking, all the questions that we want.
So, yeah, Steve, can I just jump in? I was just going to say that I think as both attendees of virtual conferences and hosts of virtual conferences, we're going to have to figure this out. Microsoft announced very early on, like 2 months ago now, that all of their events are going to be virtual through June of 2021. So, I think this is our new reality from, I think are we still waiting, Steve, to hear if the user group summit is going to happen? It's going to be an in-person event, or what their plans are for that?
Well, that's a good question, Jeff. I actually got an email, and I'm sure I think Brian, I don't know if you submitted a presentation for summit, that they said that they're delaying it. They're waiting to hear from the state of Tennessee on the amount of people in a room and things like that. Yeah. So I do think if it is in person, it'll be, it will be different, and we're hoping it's obviously going to be, because if, one of the hardest things that we had to make a decision on the conference was we could just had a bunch of separate team meetings or go-to meetings, but it's just a little different that way. And we kind of had a third party kind of run that part for us, where we actually had a moderator that kind of led into it. And so I don't know, Brian, since you did present, do you think that was helpful to have a moderator?
I think overall, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's helpful. I did not make use of my moderator like I perhaps should have, but I also think I didn't have a good idea as to how to use my moderator particularly well. I think there's a whole new set of soft skills people need to learn about doing these presentations that we just don't have yet because it's just not been a thing. So I can also say, at least because I'm also on the user group board of advisors, I actually can comment a little bit, not a whole lot, that at least as of right now, the plan is still in person as far as Summit goes. But yeah, we are waiting on a lot of feedback from the state of Tennessee on stuff.
Awesome. Well, I loved my like the person that was helping with my session because she said I was handsome, and since Steve constantly tells me I have a face made for podcasting, it was good to have to hear a different opinion.
That was by the way, that was a discussion off the podcast. So all right, Jeff. I mean, it's but
we have to air some dirty laundry on air occasionally, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. And Bryan, when you brought up like, not because it happened kind of quick, because we were kind of pushing it out because we were going to have it South Bend at Notre Dame. What a great venue. I mean, we were so bummed out. We were going to go on a tour of the stadium, and just it was great weather in May here in the state of Indiana, which is May it's hit or miss. I don't know about you guys, but we used to have it up in Wisconsin at the Wisconsin Dells, and I think it snowed the majority of the meetings at least once, Jeff, up there.
Yeah, actually they canceled school the morning of our I think that was 2 years ago because of snow. So certainly it would have been I was really looking forward to the new location, but that just gives us something to look forward to. Have we announced that where we're going to be next year? Is it going to be in the same location?
We did announce it, and now I got to pull up the date that you did that. But yeah, it's going to be in South Bend again in May at Notre Dame. So if it's just a great opportunity. If they always say about Notre Dame, I grew up in South Bend, and I don't know if you guys are in. I guess is Louisville not Louisville, is University of Kentucky in Lexington.
Yes.
So it's a big college area. So you kind of, there's a lot of haters of Notre Dame, but and they say you either love them or you hate them. But it's such a beautiful campus, and but it will be there, and I'll get the date to everybody here before the end of the podcast to pull up.
Also, I'll just share that I have a special relationship with Notre Dame because it's where I lost my first drone. I was flying. It was. I don't know what happened to it, but I was trying to take some pre-dawn footage, and it just disappeared. And so that's the only drone I've ever lost. But I went back to its last position in GPS, and I don't know if it took off. It flew away and wanted to be free or what. But maybe when we're there at our 2021 customer conference, you guys can help me look for it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So Bryan, or for both of you guys, you brought up about not really having that, maybe I didn't use my moderator the way I should have. But, I guess maybe because it happened so quick when we flipped the switch to go virtual, and as we it's kind of like learning, right? Just like how everybody's learning the different phases of this virus. We'll probably have a better handle on maybe having some better either training on how to utilize the moderator. But just I've noticed a lot of things on LinkedIn about presenting, like how to look into your monitor. Because my wife's a teacher and she uses Zoom, and she told me how one just got bombed. The other, he was on one with a bunch of administrators. How it got bombed by some, she thought, junior high students. And I won't tell you what they were posting, but there's all these tips now, and I guess we're kind of learning that. So hopefully, if that happens again, we'll have some better education on how to utilize that. So. Well, great. But overall, I'm kind of curious. Overall, did it meet your expectations? I mean, were you on any other webinars prior to that maybe you thought, that we can improve on?
I think overall it met my presentations or met my expectations. I think they did the presenters did a very good job. I think the level of interactivity was somewhat limited, but that's kind of a nature of the platform, combined with everybody not really being used to it. I will say I desperately missed the random conversations that crop up as you're walking from one room to the next, or having lunch, those types of things.
I missed lunch as well. Please go ahead, Matt.
But certainly, missed the random conversations with John Grant and some of your team there, and that sort of thing. But actually, I did have the chance to go to a couple of other conferences that were similar in size and similar in the way that they were run. But the Innovia conference, I've got to say, was much more organized, easier to get from one session to the next. The chat was easy. I thought the moderator was great. I think you guys were a step ahead of the game, and that's it's not just because I'm on this podcast. That's a true statement.
Well, we appreciate it. I mean, we're looking for real feedback. And did Jeff offer you something for that statement at all? Are you aware of that, or?
Not yet. I mean, we can talk about that later, maybe. But.
Some tennis shoes or skateboards or something, maybe.
Steve, quit soiling the good name of our podcast by insinuating that we would stoop so low as to taint the opinion of our beloved listeners. Yeah. I think that if maybe unless you want to go a little bit further, that it would be good to maybe hear from Bryan and Matt about the fact that we had to change this conference from an in-person event to a virtual event because of COVID-19. Maybe hear about their experiences and how their businesses are struggling or thriving in this in this new environment, how it's affected them, et cetera. What do you think about that, Steve?
I'm sorry, did you say something? I was breaking the rule. Like I was multitasking when you asked that question. No, no, I don't have any comments to add to that, Jeff.
Okay, all right. So let's start with Bryan. How about how has this virus affected your business? Like in terms of is it good for business, bad for business, and how are you dealing with it from an IT perspective, keeping your employees and customers safe?
So it's been interesting. It's not been as much of a change as I would have thought in some respects. So first off, it's worth noting, we do, part of our converters are used in military aspects, and as such, we got classified as an essential business, and that happened very early, and therefore we could continue to operate as normal regardless of anything else going on. That said, we did try to transition a number of people working from home. We very quickly did the math and realized we actually don't have enough bandwidth into the building to deal with that. There's an issue that I don't think a lot of businesses were really thinking about of, oh Lord, how are we going to deal with everybody not being in the building? We're not on Business Central yet, so we're in an on-prem nav installation. And users on VPNs chew up a lot of bandwidth. So we actually ended up using our remote support tool, LogMeIn, and configured users to be able to remote into their own machines still in the building, and either help them get LogMeIn configured on their home machine and kind of did a bring your own computer style project for that, or in some cases issued out some of our spare laptops. But we transitioned a lot of our workforce to that to allow them to work from home. Some people chose to work from home. Some people chose to continue coming into the office. Our shipping department was one that was kind of interesting. They're already isolated in terms of where they are in the building, and they made that isolation policy. So you actually weren't allowed to go into the shipping department. If you needed something from them, you had to send them a message and then go upstairs and drop it on a cart at the door for them to ship it out. Or if they had something for you, they would send you a message, and there were certain times of the day that you could go up and pick it up. So that was very different. But otherwise, in terms of actual business, not a whole lot changed. We did see some customers delaying their expected shipment dates for certain products and things like that. But yeah, overall, it's been a pretty. It's made things interesting, but it's not actually had any massive effects.
What about from a supply chain side, like where you're getting your stuff from, or was there any disruption there? Because I know other parts of the world were affected before the U.S. was.
So that's one that was actually kind of interesting. It actually exposed some problems with our suppliers we were unaware of. One of our primary suppliers for a particular component, which we were under the mistaken assumption that they actually, end-to-end manufactured that component. Turns out they actually had a portion of their supply chain which was in Wuhan, so that got cut off. And now, fortunately, we maintain a pretty substantial safety stock on most of our raw materials. In some cases, and part of that is we've got components that are incredibly long lead time. I know we have some stuff that's like 6-8 months lead time minimum in some cases. So we'll typically maintain double or triple the lead time in safety stock. So just because a minor disruption like that can really cause some huge havoc for us. So
right.
we've been pretty lucky there. Even on that component, we didn't have an issue. We had enough safety stock. That said, that exposed an issue with that particular component we were unaware of, which has caused us to start doing research for alternative components on it, simply so that we've got some additional sources on that material. But no, overall supply chain was relatively unaffected, and it's been reasonably smooth.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. Matt, what about Link-Belt Excavators? You started this COVID thing at a huge international conference in Las Vegas. Tell us about that and how you guys are dealing with this.
Yeah, that is correct. We were many of us were at what's called Con Expo in Vegas, which is probably the world's largest heavy machinery manufacturing exposition. Which it was it went on as scheduled, with very few people coming in internationally. I think we are based in Japan, and I think we left about 95 people off of our list who didn't get to come from overseas at that time. And then some booths at the conference, they had their machines, which had been set up, for weeks, if not months, but no employees, because they chose not to send their employees. So, it was a bit of a mess, to say the least. But as far as business as usual, our company is very much very similar to what Bryan was saying. We were classified as essential business. Our parts depot and shipping location is separate from our main office. So, those people were coming into work, and while we chose to give people the option to work from home, which I think we're finding out, and a lot of people are finding out that hey, I can do my job from home, and it's not detrimental to the company. I'm still pretty darn productive. As far as sales and that sort of thing, I think we have lost at least some whole goods sales, meaning whole excavators. You're talking, $100,000 to $800,000, those type of machine, because of concern about the economy and concern about that kind of thing. But construction jobs are going on as usual. So people who already have the machines, they've really been stepping up and using their machines. Our parts we can't. I mean, it's hard to keep them in stock. We're doing more part sales than ever right now. So that's one good aspect of it.
Question I have for you guys. So with, were you having conversations, or maybe were you aware of C-suite conversations about, the big buzzword is the cloud, right? And there's always been talk about, can you work remote? And this obviously forced a lot of companies to do, obviously going remote because of what's going on. And, I'm having discussions and I'm reading, different articles and stuff, how, it's taking people that were looking, 3 to 5 years down the road as a roadmap, pulled them forward. And like you said, Matt, they found out, hey, I can actually work from home. How do you see that affecting your businesses going forward? I mean, do you think you'll be having more people working remote, or do you have either a gut feeling or, you guys have any talk strategy-wise within your companies about that?
At LBX, I think that's definitely a possibility. I know a few departments have been pushing for that, even before the COVID scare and the pandemic. But I think a lot of people are very satisfied with working from home, and I don't think we're going to be at full staff in the office even after we're comfortable going back.
I think for VPT, at least for now, so we've got special concerns over some of our data and things like that, which makes a move to the cloud difficult for us. We are in the process, and actually Inovia is helping us out with this, of trying to get our Office 365 instance transitioned over to GCC High. And with that being done, then we actually have the level of security and safeguards on our cloud side that we could potentially look at that. But it's difficult with the business we're in to not want to maintain the on-prem data. That said, it's something we're definitely evaluating, because the costs of shifting stuff towards the cloud is getting cheaper and cheaper, and the cost of on-prem equipment is not actually going down any. But maintaining that equipment versus maintaining cloud instances is a lot more of a problem. So I don't know that this is accelerating it that much, other than it is making it far more difficult for us to support some of our remote sites, because we've got equipment that needs to be replaced and we can't get on site to do it.
Right. And for those that don't know, the GCC High, correct, is the government cloud. Right,
yes,
Ryan?
that is the government cloud side of Office 365. And there's a couple of different levels of it, and High just happens to be the one where it meets our data classification requirements.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's at least there's conversations about it, right? I mean, how can you, for those, we have quite a few customers that, either connectivity or security, whatever issues that they're going to have on premise. But now with kind of people working remote, how do you get access to these people? Because, with everything is there, on your servers, and, how do you communicate when you're not there? So it's interesting to hear how these conversations are developing and accelerating on it. But I just to let you guys know, I do have the date for the next conference. It is May 5th and 6th at Notre Dame. And Tim has posted on our website, if you go to events, it actually has the 2020 post-conference access, which we haven't put the sessions on. So like if you want to catch what Bryan did, it's going to be on there hopefully here in the next week or so of all the sessions on there. So, and that kind of led me to thinking, so did you guys actually have other team members from your companies attend the virtual conference? Because now you didn't have to obviously take a couple days off and travel. Did you see a benefit of that at all?
I'll be honest, it happened so fast. We weren't able to, I wasn't able to really arrange for people to have time to be able to attend other than the people who were already planning. I don't know how things turned out for Matt there, but that was kind of the way it went for us.
Yeah, we absolutely had a number of attendees who would not have otherwise had the chance to see those events. We have people from accounting. We have people who are nav. I mean, I guess I would use the term power users. They're not necessarily super users in nav, but we did have people who were very interested in nav. Take a look at a few of the sessions, and that was certainly a plus of the virtual environment.
Yeah, no, I will agree. I wish we'd been faster to be able to react, but it was just simply there was too much other stuff going on, and people didn't have time allocated to it. And it was by the time the decision was made, the people who were likely to want to try to attend were unable to rearrange their schedules.
And I think though that had to do with kind of on our end, we were trying to push it out as because of the wondering if where it was going to be on the reopening, and then we kind of pulled the trigger. And I think if obviously if it is next year, hopefully it's not. If it's going to be another remote one, we'll definitely have more time for people to attend. And the neat thing is emails will be going out once all the stuff is posted. So we'll maybe Jeff, something we can talk about internally is, should we, do we break out and say these are the financial ones, these are the manufacturing ones, or versus saying here's a link to all of them?
Yeah, I think. I think we were with. In terms of marketing to those separate tracks, I think that might be actually like the second good idea you've had in your life. The first one, of course, was marrying Lynn, not starting the podcast up.
Oh, guys, say a prayer for me, all right? Would you? But any other feedback you want to give us for future conferences if they go virtual?
Well, I'm starting to, after having attended this, and this is actually one of the things that was has come out of this, at least for me, is having this virtual component, even if it's not necessarily 100% virtual conference, can really open it up in terms of giving access to other people. And a blended virtual, non-virtual presence might actually be something that would be particularly good in the future.
Yeah, because Jeff, we've recorded in our previous ones, but I think it's more of just we share the PowerPoints, correct?
Yep, the slide decks.
Right. So I know we've had a couple presentations that our consultants have given to where people have asked us, "Well, I'd like to watch that again." So I think, Bryan, I think having that hybrid, and that's something that we can look into, because the thing is we have 5 or 6 going on each hour, and to record all those video and audio and get them posted, that's something we'll probably dig a little bit deeper in internal conversations. But yeah, one thing that has changed, and it's like having access to YouTube videos. Like I was able to fix my dryer. My wife says my only tool I have is my checkbook, and as a guy, you're kind of like, I'm going to figure out how to fix this. So I went to YouTube and figured out how to fix my dryer and change the belts and all that stuff. So, but I did that on my time. So I think having that library availability is a very cool thing. So, but one of the things I wanted to do was give a shout out. So we invited Bryan from Clean Control to be on this conference. They're out of Atlanta. They make Odoban, and you talk about being essential. All the disinfectants that they make for nursing homes, and if you go to the store, they have all sorts of different products. She was unable to make it here, but we want to give a shout out to her and her team. Hope all is well going there, and we're going to get her and members of her team eventually on a podcast, Jeff. So I know she was excited about attending and was unable to make our podcast today. So Bryan, hope all is well. Anything else you guys like to add for closing comments?
Well, I will say one thing that I certainly missed, and is the opportunity to eat one of those thick steaks that we had up in Wisconsin. So I don't know if that's maybe a possibility. Like next year, even if it is virtual, I'm not opposed to delivery steak. So just
sounds like a Fred Flintstone steak.
It was. Stay away from the salmon though.
Oh, nice. Yeah, missed the food and the cocktail hour is always fun. It's it's the interaction and being in the world of in sales, and as a sales trainer, I always tell people that everything changes when you're in front of somebody, because you just have the interaction, like you said, the side conversations, and our ISVs are so important to us, and they help sponsor that conference. And did you guys happen to have any interaction with the ISVs, or was it hard to interact with them in the virtual conference?
I did not this year. I didn't really look into it as hard as I should have, but no, this year I didn't.
Yeah, I can't say that I did either, but I had some emergent situations kind of going on the same day. I will say that's the number one thing that I appreciate about it being in person rather than online, is you are removed from your normal place.
That's a good point.
You don't get sucked into something else. I had one session I had to duck out of to, I stayed connected and I was listening, but I really wasn't getting as much out of it as I could have. Simply because I had to concentrate on an issue that was going on, and they needed, they had been able to tap me to get my help on it. And if I'd actually been physically not in the building, I would have not gotten pulled into that issue until much later.
I was part of very much the same situation, Bryan. So that's huge, a huge difference in the two formats.
And that's actually that's one of the things I would say that makes it difficult from our management's standpoint. Obviously, at the Innovia conference, it's not a problem, but for a cost standpoint, on like the big user group conferences, it makes our management very shy about wanting to allocate funds to pay for those spots because they're concerned with the person being able to be pulled away.
Yeah, good points. And I've had a lot of feedback over the years that because some of the ISVs, there's I wouldn't say easy access, but you can reach out directly, and a lot of them say you got to go through your partner. So we feel strongly by connecting users that are thinking about ways of improving their business, having the ISVs and the add-ons at the customer conference, so you can have those conversations directly, is really, really important.
Yeah, I'd also just jump in and say that I think also the uniqueness of the situation. I mean, a month ago, you think about like what the last 3 months have been like. It seems like decades have gone past in those 3 months, and how business has changed, how everything has changed. And I think at a month ago, we were at the tail end of acclimating to this new normal, and it didn't, there was a lot of concern now. States are starting to open up, and the economy is slowly starting to come back to life. I think maybe there was a lot of the idea of adding an ISV or looking at anything other than survival mode for a lot of businesses is probably was maybe a little more distant than a typical conference where people go there with the expectation of like, hey, I know we want to improve this functional area of our software, so we're going to be looking at specifics. I think that might have also sort of dampened the ISV customer interaction at that event. But certainly, it's for us. We've got to be prepared for anything, and I think our leadership team did a good job of converting this. I felt like it was not as much fun as a in-person event, but it was still. I think we did a good job. All the presenters and ISVs, Innovia customers like Bryan. I mean, we certainly appreciate it, and I think that just goes to our who we are as a company at Innovia and trying to help our end users get as much value out of their investment in the software as possible through events like this. So thanks everyone for attending. And Bryan for presenting as well. So, Steve, I think we are running up on, unless you want to dethrone Donovan for the longest podcast in the Innovia Conversation history. I think we're near the end.
Right.
Anything else you wanna say?
Well, I just want to say if I know Jeff and I are in your two of your top 60 Innovia employees. Is there anybody else you want to give a shout out to, or maybe he's done anything out of the way for you guys?
For me, there's such a long list. I mean, I appreciate all that you guys have done for us. It's great, and hope to continue for a long time.
Well, Matt, thank you. Bryan, anyone to make a shout out for?
I kind of have to echo the same, although I will say specifically, Desiree on the sport team helped us with a inventory issue here recently that proved to be a bit of a pain, and we're really glad to have that taken care of. We had a bunch of raw material that we couldn't get a put away process for it, and it turns out there's a code change that wasn't documented against a bug, but it definitely fixed one.
Well, I'll let Holly know that you gave a shout out to Des, and we're very fortunate. Jeff and I get to kind of do these podcasts, and the beauty is having like Des and a lot of great consultants and developers here at Innovia. So once again, guys, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. And for all our listeners, you can obviously follow us on social media. We're heavily involved on LinkedIn. We're also on Twitter, and you can go to our website innovia.com. and see all our information. The conferences are on there. And Jeff, I think this podcast is over.
I would agree. And I'm going to make, since Tim won't give us the drop the mic sound, I'm going to make the drop the mic sound.